Professor Koh King Kee, you are in Malaysia and part of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Countries in Southeast Asia. And some observers feel that perhaps the real issue of overcapacity is not China, but it's the US itself of overcapacity, whether it's the US debt or whether it's the US military or the US otherwise lack of economic development in that part of the world. How do you see that issue, Professor Koh King Kee? Because we see that there are a lot of activity taking place in Southeast Asia where there are flashes of a new Cold War. Recently, there were meetings between the US and Japan and the Philippines, then there's Quad, then there's AUKUS. So it seems that Southeast Asia is becoming the new center of some kind of a new Cold War sparked by Washington.
I was saying that US is overcapacity in military sense. Its defense budget is more than the total sum of next 10 countries. So it's interfering into the affairs of a lot of countries, involved in wars, in all kinds of names, in defense of democracy and human rights and all kinds of things, Well, US cannot accept China's rise as peers because US was the sole superpower since the end of the Cold War. However, China's rise is inevitable and unstoppable. You can't stop China's rise. You can delay. US can delay by all kinds of a fixed strategy, but you cannot stop China's rise. In fact, China has a long way to go to become a modern and advanced country. China is huge and its economy is big. It's the second largest economy in the world because of its population. It has a huge population. It's the world's largest country in the world in terms of population. And its economy right now is about 65%. GDP is about 65% of US. But its per capita GDP is hardly 15% of US. So China just want to grow its economy to improve the well-being of its people. It's not interested in challenging US become the global leader. No, China is not interested. However, as our previous speaker said, the global order architecture by the Western countries were not fair in the sense that because it was those days, most of the countries were not independent yet; they are colonies. But now, most of these countries has become independent, and China's rise has changed the global power dynamics. The world has to accept that. US has to accept that. Otherwise, there'll be no end to this, so-called competition. But global issue, you need the cooperation of China and US. This climate change is a good example. If China and US and China can work together, it benefits the whole mankind. So away from the global south will appeal to US to accept reality. Asia was able to grow and become the most robust economy in the world over the past 40 years because we have peace. Peace is a precondition for growth. We want nothing. ASEAN countries want nothing but peace and good neighbors and work together. So for China, well, like Dr. Made has mentioned many times, for 2,000 years has never invaded any country, including ASEAN countries. So it's unlikely China is going to be militarily so-called assertive and offensive. No, China's military is basically defensive. There's a joke saying that the Great Wall is not built within China's territory, not built outside, unlike US is building 800 over military bases outside its own territory. China is defensive. It just wants to make sure that its sovereignty, its national.
I'll ask Dr. Agdas, how is China's green technology revolution affecting the economic development of the global south? And because China is also a leader in globalization now. And how do you see that as a plus for the economic development of the global south? Dr. Agdas.
Well, first of all, whenever the US or other Western nations talk about overcapacity, I think we also need to find out what the Chinese perspective is. I think the Chinese have been saying consistently, and I think there is a lot of merit to what they have been saying, that it's not a increase in supply, rather there is a decrease in global demand that is going on. The world just isn't buying as much as it used to, and I think that idea, that imbalance between global supply and global demand is being portrayed as overcapacity by certain US, how should I say, leadership. So I think that's one point that I wanted to make. And also, I think Chinese manufacturing has been tremendously helpful in bringing down costs in the developing world. I mean, look at the example of solar panels in Pakistan that are made in China. I mean, they are now ubiquitous. I mean, you drive on the motorway from Lahore to Islamabad, you will see large wheat fields displaying huge solar panels. So I think that's one manifestation of this benefit that the world has drawn from Chinese manufacturing, especially in green technologies. And I think this idea China is developing or producing or bringing about overcapacity just doesn't pan out when we look at history. I mean, all countries in the world have developed surplus, and this was a point that was made by one of the panelists earlier. I mean, how do you think the US is exporting Coca-Cola or Apple products? Isn't that overcapacity? So I think surplus has always been produced by all nations who have been able to do it, and they've always sought external markets to sell whatever it is that they produce. And I think in the final analysis, this so-called overcapacity has been beneficial in terms of bringing down inflation, in terms of bringing down cost and prices for many consumers in the global south. And an example of that is reasonably priced solar panels that are now ubiquitous and available everywhere in Pakistan.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. And with this, we come to an end to this episode of Global South Voices. I would like to thank all our distinguished guests for their very intellectually stimulating discussion and their very informative contribution to today's show. You can find us on CGTN app. You can find us also on X, on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Mushahid Hussain, and stay tuned for Global South Voices, which is CGTN's debut program presenting a different perspective from the Global South. Thank you so much. See you next time.